Good morning and happy Wednesday. Welcome to this episode of Mizzou Daily. We're going to be touching on a lot of different stuff today, kind of highlighting some returners for the Tigers that are expected to make a big impact, or we hope will make a big impact and leap. Looking at kick returning, looking at Big Dom on the offensive line, as well as some interesting stories from some quarterbacks in spring ball. And we're going to kick things off by talking about Santana Banner, though, who we've mentioned a couple times on the podcast, but I've really not really done like a deep dive into kind of what he brings to the table and what last season looked like for him. So many people probably don't know he's a transfer from Northern Illinois, actually. Played for Northern Illinois 2023 and 2024. Only played in his 2024 season, but he was actually a pretty strong player at Northern Illinois. Started in 11 games, had 54 tackles and an interception, caused a fumble, also blocked a kick. So he's a very efficient guy in the MAC, and then came over to Mizzou in 2025 and really came on the scene a little bit later in the season. Going to be a strong player for the Tigers this coming year. He got action all 13 games, made his first start on the road at Vanderbilt, and if you remember this past season, how big of a game that was. I mean, it was for all the marbles, and seeing Bo go down in that game was really tough. But Santana Banner has had a big impact on the Mizzou, on the secondary especially. Made 59 tackles this season, 30 of those solo tackles, including a tackle for loss as well. Deflected 3 passes, and also had his second interception of his career against UMass. So 59 tackles, third on the team. Pass breakups were tied for 5th, and he was one of 6 Mizzou players to record an interception this season. So he was a very strong player for the Tigers last year, making that start against Vandy, having a bunch of experience under his belt. So you really would like to see him kind of come on this year and really put on some great stuff in film. So they only lost one starter at safety, the Tigers did, and definitely had some depth to replace. But, you looked at all of the additions that they had, the corners coming in from Oregon, safeties coming in from Michigan, Chris Graves coming over from Ole Miss. So they had players there, a ton of guys. And, I mean, his ceiling is incredible. He's 6'3", 210. So he's got, like, NFL size, you could debatably say. But he was definitely targeted a lot last season, but his work was very strong, allowed the lowest catch percentage among the primary rotation for Tigers. That's a stat that, of course, comes from many different places. But he's definitely put a lot of good stuff on tape, and a very strong chance he's the best player in the secondary next season. Best safety, probably. Best corner will probably end up being Chris Graves, or you'd like to think it would be, just based on what players have said after practice. I mean, I don't know if you got how on social media you guys are, but looking after, they put out kind of videos on the Mizzou like Instagram and like the athletics page does about who was kind of the guy that was. They were like, oh, who showed you the most, and a lot of people said Chris Graves, so that was pretty cool to see. The transfer coming in and making an impact there, but he was basically just moving up the depth chart inch by inch last year. Finally got his start against Vanderbilt, and expecting some really big things out of him after being third most tackles on the team this past season as a safety. Getting a reception and a tackle for loss. You like to see him grow on that. So switching gears a little bit, going to talk about some kick returning. Demarion Folks is Mizzou's guy. Didn't play much during the games except for on kickoffs. That was basically it. So he was the return man last year as a true freshman. A bit of a smaller guy, 5'9", 185, but I mean, he could fly. He was speedster to say the least. Didn't really get a chance to return as many punts as kicks. Only 3 punt returns, but 10 kick returns, average about 23 yards per kick return. It's been looking at stuff there from spring ball, the tweets and the articles that come out from Power Mizzou, On3, all these different websites. Seems like he's going to be the guy returning punts and kicks this year. So that'd be pretty awesome to see. He had a very big impact as a kick returner, returning those 10 kicks as a true freshman. It takes a lot for a guy to go back to return kicks as a true freshman. It takes when the ball's coming at you and it's coming in that rotation, it's not the easiest thing to catch, for an 18-year-old guy, 19-year-old guy to go out there and have the trust of the coaching staff to go make those catches and in the big moments. Really shows a lot about what the coaching staff thinks of him, and special teams as well with a new special teams coordinator. We're going to talk a little about that on a Thursday, though. But focusing more on Demarion, he was fantastic in high school as a punt returner. He scored 6 special teams touchdowns in his senior year. That was 1 kickoff and 5 punt returns. 241 yards on punt returns, 326 yards on kickoff returns in high school. And the kickers aren't really kicking the ball that far in high school. So for him to put up those numbers was incredible. Really hope to see him kind of break one this year. It'd be awesome if you broke one week 1 against Pine Bluff. That'd be absolutely awesome to see, coming in under his own and, maybe an opening kickoff. A guy can dream, but it's pretty sweet to see him come back, and it's from what it looks like he's going to be having the role of punt and kick returner this coming season. Maybe have him play a little bit more during the season. He touched the ball once from scrimmage last year, and it was a rush attempt. That was his only time touching the ball from scrimmage, other than the kick returns and the punt return. So something to think about there, but maybe see him make more of an impact this year from the receiving game. He's more of a slot guy, like I said, smaller guy, 5'9", 185, but deep threat for sure. He can fly, so something to look out for there. Switching up a little bit now, we're going to talk about some returning offensive line experience. Dominic Judice, he's going to be a grab student this year. He's been a key part of the offensive line. Many are expecting him to kind of transition into the role of center. 6th-year senior. He started all 13 games last year at left guard. Was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal in the Kansas game. It was honestly incredible to see. He actually won the National Offensive Lineman of the Week and SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week in the Border War. So man, seeing him go into the Lawrence this year with that on his belt, with that under his belt, maybe, he's only been at Mizzou for a year and he already hates Kansas. So you got to love that. Came in from Michigan, where he played a little bit sparingly, but, he's on the team that won the national championship. So strong experience there for him. 6'4", 312 pounds. Making the transition to center is going to be a little different. You don't really see centers that are that big anymore. You kind of see the Creed Humphreys smaller guys. Jason Kelsey retired, more of not a smaller guy, but not the size of your guards and your tackles, for sure. But I have no doubt in my mind that he will be able to make that transition smoothly. The offensive line is always a strong aspect of the Tigers. Got Caden Green coming back, Josh Atkins coming over. It looks like they're both going to roll. Caden Green's, of course, going to be a starter, but Josh Atkins likely to be a starter as well. So kind of building up that offensive line, something that's really important for Mizzou, the way they want to run the ball with Chip Lindsey and Ahmad Hardy. So, getting some returning offensive line experience like big Dominic Judice is going to be sweet. And he actually had a pretty strong PFF grade. There's a lot of stock that we'll put into these PFF grades, but he was very strong. 896 snaps at left guard. He just allowed 1 sack, 1 QB hit, and 10 hurries in those 13 games. And so his pass blocking efficiency stat that measures pressure allowed on a per snap basis with weighting towards sacks allowed. So this is all PFF stats. You take them with a grain of salt. You can kind of think of them what you want. I think it's really interesting. I think that the math that goes into it and the people that are really behind this do a lot of research, and I think it's really, really cool to look at. But a 98.4% efficiency in terms of pass blocking efficiency. So, that's an A. If we're in school, 98.4% is an A. So that's pretty good in my eyes. But big to have him returning. And good to have him back and kind of leading some of the newer offensive linemen. And like we were talking about, some of them that are committing to Mizzou, they were there. Like we talked about Liao last podcast, and he was at spring ball, saw the practice, maybe got a chance to talk to him. We really don't know all that information, but the ability to lead and kind of grow is something that's really, really there. So finishing off today's episode, I'm going to talk about some quarterbacks in spring ball. So reading some articles, this is from Power Mizzou's article. They were talking about how every quarterback is wearing a knee brace. All of them. It's a little bit weird. But in terms of the drills, it looked like Austin Simmons went first, then it was Matt Zollers, then it was Nick Evers, Gavin Sidwar, and then Brett Brown following that. So as you'd expect, Austin Simmons is leading the reps, which you'd really like to see considering kind of put a lot of stock in him to be the leader of this Mizzou team as a quarterback and be able to distribute the ball, throw the ball to his buddy Caden Lee a lot. So Pretty cool stuff there, but it looks like Austin Simmons has got the number 13, same number he wore at Ole Miss, and so that's pretty sweet. But it didn't really, so according to the reports, didn't look like any of them were like hobbled by their knee. Didn't look like it was a problem per se, but they're all wearing knee braces, so just something to keep an eye on, something to think about. I don't know if it's a new thing, but Coach Drinkwitz had a funny quote last week. He said, "It's like a damn garage sale. You've got knee braces anywhere." I mean, you don't think he was just talking about the quarterbacks with that. Probably talking about the offensive linemen as well, because I mean, you'd expect them to be wearing knee braces, but for the quarterbacks who you like to think you're going to get a little mobile scamper out of the pocket if they need to, be able to throw on the run, knee brace not holding them back, but definitely looks a little bit weird. So we'll see if that continues on throughout spring ball and throughout the summer and as we get into the beginning of the season. So something to keep an eye on there. But I just thought that was a little bit interesting. But that's going to do it for Wednesday's episode. We're going to take a little bit deeper look at what spring ball looked like this week, especially the Tuesday practice, and as well as looking at some special teams on Thursday. So have a great rest of your Wednesday. I'll see you tomorrow.